Every single living thing on Earth, including you, is built using a secret, invisible code. In today's explainer, we are going on a wild journey to crack that code and figure out exactly how your traits were passed down to you through the generations.
But honestly, it's kind of hard to believe where we started. Did you know that brilliant ancient minds like Aristotle actually thought that dirty hay spontaneously spawned living mice? Seriously! For over 2,000 years, people would look at aphids on the morning dew or mice scurrying out of a barn and completely buy into the idea that life just magically popped into existence from non-living matter.
Section 1. Busting Ancient Life Myths.
So back in 383 BC, Aristotle championed this idea of spontaneous generation. It actually took until the late 1600s for Francesco Redi to set up a super clever experiment with sealed meat jars, proving that maggots actually came from flies, not the rotting meat itself. Then Leeuwenhoek built these early microscopes and discovered tiny invisible animalcules. But the final nail in the coffin? That came in the 1800s. Louis Pasteur boiled broth in these crazy swan-necked flasks that let air in but kept dust out. The broth stayed totally clear, definitively proving once and for all that life only comes from other life.
But here's the thing. Even after scientists accepted that life comes from life, they were still wildly confused about exactly how. Under preformation theory, biologists literally thought there was a tiny, fully preformed human, a homunculus, just waiting inside a single sperm or egg cell. And then there was Charles Darwin's pangenesis, which was this idea that every organ in your body produces tiny, invisible copies of itself that travel through your bloodstream. It really shows just how desperate the scientific world was for a real answer.
Section 2. Mendel's pea plant experiments. Between 1856 and 1863, a quiet, incredibly meticulous monk named Gregor Mendel decided to solve the mystery. He cultivated and tested around 29,000 pea plants. And he didn't just let them grow wild in the garden. He carefully snipped the stamens off purple flowers so they couldn't self-pollinate, and then precisely transferred pollen from white flowers to track exactly how traits were passed down. By sticking to absolute binary characteristics, like a flower being either strictly purple or white, he laid the entire mathematical foundation for modern genetics.
To really grasp what Mendel discovered, it helps to think about it like baking. The genotype is your hidden code. It's the invisible recipe written in your DNA, usually represented by letters like a capital A or a lowercase a. The phenotype, on the other hand, is your physical appearance. It's the actual cake that comes out of the oven, like a purple flower or a green pea. You get to see the phenotype, but it's that invisible genotype that's secretly calling all the shots.
And those letters making up the recipe, we call them alleles. Put simply, an allele is just a different version of a gene. For every single trait you have, you get one set of instructions from your mom and one set from your dad.
Depending on what your parents hand down to you, your genetic code falls into one of two buckets. If your mom and dad give you the exact same instructions, two matching alleles, you are homozygous for that trait. But if they hand you different instructions, a mixed bag, like one allele for a purple flower and one for a white flower, well then you are heterozygous.
Section 3. The Rules of Heredity.
Through all his statistical number crunching with thousands of peas, Mendel proved three absolute rules of the game: the law of dominance, the law of segregation, and the law of independent assortment. It is absolutely fascinating to see how these step-by-step rules dictate life. Let's break them down. First up, the law of dominance. When Mendel crossed a pure, true-breeding purple flower with a pure white flower, the offspring weren't some light purple hybrid. No, they were all completely purple. It turns out, if you have two different alleles coding for a trait, one dominant gene will step right into the spotlight and completely hide the recessive gene. That white instruction is actually still there in the hidden genotype, but the purple phenotype dominates the stage. Next, we have the law of segregation, which explains how traits actually get passed on. Think of it like splitting a deck of cards. Step 1, every parent has paired alleles. Step 2, when it's time to make a gamete, a sperm or egg cell, those paired alleles separate randomly. Step 3, each gamete receives exactly one copy. So you have two cards for every trait, but you can only hand one of them down to your child. Finally, Mendel's third law, the law of independent assortment. Now this might look super complex, but the idea is incredibly simple. Mendel basically asked, hey, does the color of a pea affect its shape? So he bred peas that were round and yellow with peas that were wrinkled and green. When he crossed the hybrid offspring, he got a very specific mix: 9 round yellow, 3 wrinkled yellow, 3 round green, and 1 wrinkled green.
That 9:3 to 3:1 ratio proved that traits like color and shape just don't care about each other. They mix totally, randomly, and independently.
Section 4. When the rules break. But here's the plot twist. It turns out nature's beautifully messy. Something called incomplete dominance completely breaks Mendel's law of dominance. When you cross a red 4-o'clock plant with a white one, neither gene is actually strong enough to hide the other. Instead of one winning out, the two genes blend together, kind of like mixing wet paint, creating a brand new F1 generation of beautiful pink flowers.
Then we have codominance. In this case, instead of blending into some middle ground, both traits fight for the spotlight and they both win. They show up completely at the exact same time. The perfect example of this is actually right inside you, the AB blood group in humans. People with AB blood have fully expressed A alleles and fully expressed B alleles simultaneously. It's a total tie.
And here is the most bizarre and honestly fatal exception: lethal genes. In certain mice, a yellow coat color is dominant over gray. But if a mouse happens to inherit 2 dominant yellow alleles, making it homozygous yellow, it never survives. It actually dies before even being born. Because of this lethal combination, Mendel's classic survival ratios get completely thrown out the window. Mendel never observed this himself because he luckily only worked with equal survival genotypes.
Section 5. Predicting the future.
Even with these messy exceptions, Mendel's foundational tools are still incredibly powerful for predicting the unseen genetic future. Take the test cross, for example. It's basically a genetic lie detector test. Say you have a plant with a dominant green pod. You can easily see its phenotype, but its genotype is a total mystery. Is it carrying pure dominant alleles, or is it secretly hiding a recessive yellow pod allele? To find out, scientists cross it with a known homozygous recessive plant. If any offspring pop out with a recessive trait, boom, you've caught the parent hiding a sneaky recessive gene.
Which brings us to the ultimate takeaway of this explainer. You've just seen how scientists map traits, predict outcomes, and read the secret code of life. But what about you? Take a look in the mirror. Every physical trait you see is just your phenotype. So what ancient, invisible, recessive genes might you be hiding in your DNA, just waiting to be passed on to the next generation? It's a pretty fascinating thought to leave you with. Thanks so much for joining me to decode the secrets of genetics, and keep exploring.